All right, so pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 30A, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Great Barrington Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen in the meeting may do so in the following manner. See the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. So Anne, you're recording it twice, right?
Well, the town is recording it. I'm the co-host of that, and then I'm also just doing an audio recording on my phone as a backup.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Anne,
Here,
Madonna,
Here.
Elena,
Aye.
and Richard is not here yet. We'll.
yeah, I'm still waiting on it.
And then I, Phil Orenstein, I'm here as well. Okay.
Phil,
So-
if I can just jump in real quickly, I just wanted to mention to Ruby that she appears to be signed in on a town account, so I can't remove her and put her back in the panelist. So
All right,
just
I'm
wanted
happy to have her
point
as a
that out.
panelist. I don't see any problem with that. So we can
I'm
proceed.
guessing she signed in from a library trustee
Right,
account, or
right.
for whatever reason, I can't remove her status, so I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I don't think she'll be sure she'll be very well behaved. All right, committee, we have a committee reorganization. We haven't met since the last election where I guess Ann and I ran unopposed and were victorious in that. So does anyone wish to volunteer for the chair role or the vice chair role?
Not me.
I'm willing to continue on as vice chair, so I would nominate myself.
Okay, and based on the huge interest in the position, I'll volunteer to continue as chair. And okay, so we'll have a vote on Anne as vice chair. Roll call vote. Madonna,
Aye.
Milena,
Aye.
I'll vote aye, and I guess Anne, you should probably,
I will abstain.
you will abstain, okay, and then is there a motion for,
I'll make a motion for Phil to continue as chair.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
Milena,
Aye.
and I will abstain. Okay.
We should probably have elected Richard to both.
Yeah, that would be a great idea, actually. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I've texted him. I don't know. He had texted that he was logging on, so I don't know what's happened. So
Okay, I don't think he was planning on running for those.
no. I was joking.
Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
here he
Okay.
comes.
Oh, there he is. Okay, great. So
He might want a recall.
Right, it's possible. You're getting close, Richard. Okay, we'll just plow ahead to the minutes. There's April minutes that are in the packet. From our last meeting in April. Do we have a motion there?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 1st, 2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
This is Ann, I.
Madonna,
Madonna, I.
Elena,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. So the minutes are approved. So we
Richard,
will
are you
move-
able to speak?
I'm attempting to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah,
Approve.
great.
Okay,
Thank you, Richard. Okay, then we're on to the town manager agenda item and discussion of various reserve fund transfer requests, both for departments as well as year-end transfers. Mark, would you like to speak?
Sure, thank you, Philip. So being late June, of course, we have a number of housekeeping items to address this evening. First on the list is a reserve fund transfer from the police department. Chief's here to speak a little to that. We have a reserve fund request for $5,000 for the treasurer's office to cover a deficit in the postage line in that department. And then we have a number of year-end transfers to make accounts currently in a deficit hole again. And I know we only do this once a year or twice a year, and it's been a year since we've done this. So just to remind everyone, this is standard operating procedure for us in Massachusetts. We can only do this during the last 60 days of fiscal year. And we'll walk you through those specific requests as we move through the file tonight.
Okay, well, why don't we start with the with Chief Storty? He's been in the queue on this one for quite a while, so why don't we get to that first?
and Chief, before you start talking, I know that there was something in the packet, but that you're updating that request, so I'm gonna share that on the screen while you talk through that, if that's okay, just so everybody who's attending can see the request.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank you again for meeting with me at the year's end. It is my goal to not have to come to the committee at some point. But unfortunately, our staffing, just kind of a recap from last year, we were 3 full-time officers short. We hired those 3 officers and they attended the academy this past year. July 4th of last year, one of our command staff members had a serious medical issue, which put him out for several months, extended period of time, which had a pretty big impact on our budget. So not only were we 3 officers short, that made it 4. Fortunately, he was able to recover and has returned to work. And then this past fall, I lost 2 additional full-time officers who, one for personal reasons, the other decided to take his career to another department. The officers that I hired, the 3 that I did hire last year, graduated the academy mid-March of this year, and they are currently in the field training officer program. And with that, they progress at different paces. So my goal is to hopefully have them some by July 1st of this year, and maybe the others mid-July cleared for full duty where they can be on their own. Additionally, one thing I wanted to point out, we had a series of complex cases over this past year. And what we've learned is, technology is great, but it makes our investigations more complex. Everybody has a cell phone. So pretty much if we're going to gather evidence or do an investigation, it's going to require some type of electronic device, which then requires obtaining a search warrant, and then it obtains processing that data, that information, or video cameras, which is time consuming, looking at footage and what have you. So the days of, taking just statements and going forward with your case and doing some physical evidence here and there, it has changed dramatically with technology. It is a benefit, but also it can make it a little bit more time consuming. So when I originally put the proposal together, I knew I was going to have to come to you. I did a quick projection, not knowing at that point in May what officers still had remaining and they're going to put in for their earned time off. Most officers like to take their time, when the weather is warm. So this month is I got hit pretty hard, and that's why you'll see the projections. I have 51 vacancies from in the next 3 weeks to fill. So that's why you'll see I had to recalculate and recalibrate once I had everybody's vacation request and their time that they're going to be taking off, so I could look at the schedule and kind of figure it out. I knew that the thing I put in May, I was going to probably be short, but I just was making an educated guess at that point. So that's why I had to do an updated version where now I have a better, clearer picture because everybody submitted their proposals.
All right, so just to confirm the math, I'm sorry, just to confirm the math, you had put in for 25 earlier, you're taking that back and resubmitting for the 50,000.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, sorry, Melina, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask exactly the same. Yeah, so we are really talking 50,000 now.
Yes.
That's
There is a
that's
slight
the
contingency in there because
most updated. Yeah.
again,
okay.
the way we've been super busy this beginning of the summer. Again, complex cases that are requiring a lot of extra time and work and effort. So that's why I just added the slight contingency in case I did run into something, I'd have a little barrier.
This
And-
is just for the overtime. That's not for the uniforms that come later, correct?
No, this is just to help me cover the overtime that,
Oh, okay, thank you.
yes.
Overtime and investigations, or the investigations are part of the overtime?
Investigations would be part of the overtime. For example, if a case came in and the officer had to work on his day off or stay late to work on a case, that would be calculated as overtime.
Okay, great. And Mark, I think we had asked just for an update for the meeting of where we're at with our reserve fund.
Sure, so I was able to check Munis this morning, after the chief's updated request came in. The current available balance in your reserve account is $75,000.
And
Okay,
so we
fantastic.
have this request of 50,000 and then we have another request of 5,000. So if we approved both, we'd have 20,000 remaining and we have just 2 weeks left to the budget year.
That's correct, and I'm not aware of any other reserve fund requests coming your way. I haven't heard from any other department heads at this point.
And we're not scheduled to meet either, so there's nothing on the
Right.
docket. Yeah. So.
Just very high level question, Chief, and well beyond my understanding and knowledge, but when you have to do all the sort of investigation work relating to the digital record of an event, do you have the option of asking your team to do it in-house relative to say outsourcing some of that to some type of specialist firm that could do the tech work for you?
It all depends on the type of case, the severity of the crime. For example, a lot of our child pornography cases, we do utilize outside resources. We do have an investigator who has started the training with that. He has not completed all the layers of it. It's very time consuming and it takes a lot of practical training with it. But we are working towards that. But no, we do outsource some of it with the district attorney's office and the Mass State Police, or even some federal agencies, depending on if it falls outside the state. We'll bring federal authorities to help us.
Okay. These
are just cases we have for cell phones, security footage, security cameras from businesses, from homes, all that. I mean, it seems like everybody has it now, and it all plays a factor into our investigations to make sure that we're getting the proper information, and then that we're following all the leads up appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for the reserve funds of $50,000 to cover the overtime expenses for the department.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne?
Aye.
Madonna?
Aye.
Melina?
Aye.
And Richard?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. It's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank you
Chief.
very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief Storty.
Okay. So now we go to postage. All right. Yeah, anything you want to say on this, Mark? It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I was just gonna say, I don't see Alicia on the line on the attendee list, but this is, it is her request, but in reality, this line covers all 14 town departments.
Right.
So, we're short by about $5,000 this year. We've been, in deficit for quite a while, so we're just, again, looking to fill that gap before the fiscal year closes.
I think this also came up, she talked about this during the budget season as an
She
issue.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe she increased it for next year also.
Is all the Stonegate postage included in this number? Maybe that's a,
Some of it is, a lot of it is early voting and
Right.
mail-in ballots, and unfortunately, there's no
yeah.
no
Okay.
alternatives there.
All right, do we have a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion that we approve $5,000 from the reserve transfer fund to the postage budget line.
Second,
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne?
Aye.
Donna?
aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Aye as well, it's unanimous. Okay, so we move on to the year-end transfers. Mark, could you just walk us through this one?
Yeah, so this first one is mid-year salary adjustments. The total budget, as you may or may not recall for last year, fiscal 24 was $22,500. I used $13,000 of that throughout the year, so these four lines will end up being in deficit between now and the end of the fiscal year. So again, just looking to backfill those deficits with this funding.
Okay. So these were just decisions that you made as town manager on these salaries.
Yeah, I've been working from the salary survey that was done back in 2020. We update it every year, and I make salary adjustments as needed.
Mark,
These were all early fiscal year adjustments. I haven't made any in many months.
okay, so Mark, I just so that I understand this. So these are salary actions that you guys took in the middle of the fiscal year, correct?
Right, so the contingency line is there for two reasons: for mid-year salary adjustments when I need it for promotions or to
Right.
retain an employee. I also utilize this fund occasionally when I'm recruiting for a department head level position, for example, and I need to increase the salary in order to attract a candidate. So the most recent example I can think of, or a recent example, was recruiting for a department head level position where the highest salary limit that we advertised to was $80,000. And it was below what this individual was making in their other towns. So to seal the deal, I just increased the salary by $5,000, and we were able to recruit them and retain them
So,
for the last.
so let me just understand it, and I'm sorry. So if we go through the budget approval process and budget gets approved, you still have the ability to increase the salaries regardless of what was put in the budget, correct? Is it, do I understand it correctly?
Under our charter, that's correct. So
Okay.
the fiscal 25 salaries that you reviewed and approved reflected these increases.
Okay, all
So
right.
this is just end of fiscal 24 cleanup, but we accommodated for these in fiscal 25.
You
as
put
well.
them in the budget for the next
Correct.
year, but
Exactly.
we actually took the action in the previous year. That's really what
Correct.
is happening.
Exactly.
So that was not really approved under that budget. That just happened because you
Right.
did it in the middle of that. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. thank
Yeah,
you.
so this just gives, basically this line gives me flexibility throughout the year when needed to again, make salary adjustments to use it for recruitment.
Okay, thank
I
you.
That's why
guess,
it's,
and Milena, just to follow up as someone on the finance committee who found that this confusing in past years. We actually, I mean, I've always found it odd that we sort of vote on or approve or recommend the budget, but which includes salaries, but we actually don't have much say over salaries.
So there is,
That's,
but that-
that's the town manager's responsibility.
right, but is that that is pretty much open, or is there a set number? I'm still not entirely clear.
Well,
I mean,
well,
is
I
it
mean,
is your
we-
disposition
we
as
have-
much as you want, or you need to, or?
I mean,
Yes.
we had, in the budget that was approved, the 24 budget, there was an approved line item for contingency. And that is basically
It goes from there.
essentially a reserve fund that Mark has authority over to allocate it for a
Okay.
couple of purposes, and one of which is the salary adjustments he has down here.
Okay, so as long as it's within that approved contingency number, you pretty much make your executive decision how you're gonna use it. Okay, thank you.
Right, I
Helpful,
used
yeah.
13,000 of the 22.5, so I
Okay.
don't think I've ever expended the full amount.
The whole
I don't even
amount,
think-
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
I've ever even come close to it in the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay. Thank you
And
very
just-
much for all these
I
nuances.
think, I
Yeah.
think I am understanding that in the budget that we just approved for 25, they reflect these increased salaries. This is just the
Right.
little bit of the year
No.
that you still have to cover with the new salary for the new person being brought on board, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
These were
yeah, we
early,
understand that, yeah.
yeah.
It was just
early
more to
fiscal-
understand the contingency,
That's fine.
yeah, how that works and what are the decision-making powers here. Thank you, so, very helpful.
Okay, do we have a motion on this?
Oh, I'll make a motion that we approve the year-end transfer of 13,000 from the contingency budget line to four salary lines.
Second,
Okay, any further comment on this? Seeing none, a roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Donna,
I,
Melina,
Aye.
Richard?
aye.
Okay, and it's unanimous. Unanimously approved. And then we move on to the transfer from the administration to contracted services line. No, transfer from the administration line.
Two contracted services.
Yes.
Two contracted services.
Yeah, so this contracted services line is used for two purposes in my office. Well, this year anyway, it was used for two purposes. The first purpose was to cover or a portion of the Housatonic Waterworks financial study we approved several months ago. I think I asked the finance committee for a portion of the reserve fund as well, and then I used whatever funding I had in this line. Whatever balance I had. We also use this line for maintaining our copier here in the office, and maintenance costs were a little more expensive this year because we did all of our printing in-house to save money. We printed all of our town reports here, all of the town warrants for the town meeting. Everything was done in-house rather than hiring a company to do that for us. So again, just backfilling, moving money out of administration, which is the two admin assistant positions in my office. They were at least for a portion of the year, both of those positions were vacant. So there's excess funding in there that again I'd like to use to backfill this $5,300 gap.
Mark, what is the rough timing for the completion of that Housatonic water study?
I spoke to them about a month ago and they were behind schedule because they were unable to access all the data that they needed and wanted from Housatonic Waterworks. But they are still moving forward with it. Originally, they were proposing about a 6-month timeline. I'm gonna guess it's probably more like 7-8 month timeline now. But we're several months into it. We must be closing in on 6 months now, so.
Yeah, I think we are, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And-
So we should be getting close, and they're on my to-do list to reach out and just check in again. I do give them a call every few weeks, every month or so, and see where they're at.
okay.
And Mark and Phil, I think we went straight into the transfer requests and things. At the end, I'd like to circle back to talk about the Housatonic Water.
Sure, certainly, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So
so
I'll make a motion. How's that? I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer from the administration budget line to contracted services of 5,375.
Second,
Second,
any further discussion? Roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Elena,
I,
Donna,
aye.
and Richard.
aye.
And I as well, it's unanimous. Okay, so on to the $30,000 line item.
Sure, this one's mine as well, so I'll take this. Probably no surprise to any of you that our legal budget is in the hole this year, based on a number of things. The first and foremost, probably the Housatonic Waterworks rate case has consumed a solid portion of this account. We also were hit with 2 cannabis lawsuits during this year that were unexpected. And a portion of this deficit is related to the December 8th school matter. I don't have an exact number on that, and we have counsel assigned by our insurance company that's doing the real heavy lifting. But our town's personnel attorney is assisting in some aspects. So what I'm looking to do here is again move money from the administration line, that salary line that was that has plenty of excess capacity in it, to the legal fees. I overestimated the amount here. I don't think that we're gonna come close to 30,000. I just overestimated it, knowing that you're not meeting again, and I wanted to have a level of comfort that we could pay all of our legal bills by June 30th.
And
Mark, I have a question about the legal legal process, how it works here. So in
Mhm.
case of that school issue, there was an insurance coverage that pretty much took care of most of the costs there, except as you just mentioned, our council. How does it, do we have any other kind of an insurance for, similar type of, no, we don't. So this was kind of a more of an exception. That was the only one that we had. I mean, I'm a little bit confused what are the cases when the insurance company would cover that, and in what cases the insurance company would not cover that?
Yeah, I think it's really claim dependent. In this case, I did reach out to our insurance provider to see if they would provide counsel for the cannabis lawsuits, but the answer was no. School case, they did provide counsel for, so it's case by case. The
So
rate
do we
case
have-
is
yeah.
always on us.
So do we have an understanding of what kind of cases they are willing to cover and what they are not willing to cover? And what kind of an insurance do we have? What kind of is it some kind of an umbrella insurance against certain type of lawsuits? Or because the reason why I'm asking is because there seems to be, an increase in various attempts to litigate, right? And so I just would like to know, do we have, are we okay? Are we covered properly, or do we need to do anything about it?
No, I think we're covered properly. The cannabis lawsuits are very unique, of course. Unfortunately, we have funding set aside in the community impact fund portion of our free cash. But again,
Right.
it's really case by case. I think if there's a potential for substantial liability issue for the town, we're covered. I have no
Okay.
concerns about that.
Okay, so you feel confident whatever we have is
I do.
okay, but
We
we need to hire.
review our insurance coverages every year with our provider as well.
Okay.
And we've been doing just fine for many years, so not concerned.
Mark, can I ask a slightly different question? And I guess I'm just wondering why we're coming in with 30,000 in the administration salary budget line, if you can, again, talk about it without violating any personnel confidentialities, if you can.
You lost me on that
Why,
question.
why are we under, why are we 30,000 or more below the projected administration salary line?
Because of vacancies in my office in the
Okay.
admin positions. When,
Okay.
when Carmen was promoted to the accounting office, that
Oh,
position
yeah.
was vacant for several months.
Okay,
And then when Amy left, that position was vacant for several months.
that
So
makes sense.
yeah,
Okay,
that's why there's so much room to move there.
okay. I'll make a motion that we move 30,000 from the administration salary line to the legal fees line.
Second.
And any further discussion on that? Do we have a motion?
I think I made that motion.
No, I'm sorry. All right, roll
That's
call
okay,
vote.
that's
And I
right.
All right,
second.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we good.
All right, roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Milena,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
and Richard.
Aye.
And it's unanimous
Thank
approval
you
on that.
again.
And then we back to the budget transfer for the police uniforms or from uniforms.
This,
Chief, name is on if you missed one.
I mean, this seems pretty much. I guess I'll just say it's uniform. It says here, received an invoice from the previous year that was unpaid when we need to cover that. So.
Does seem pretty straightforward. Chief is still on the call. It looks like, do you want to say anything or should we just vote?
Nope, that's exactly it. If you have any questions, I can answer.
I'm happy to make a motion that we approve $1,825 from the uniform allowance into travel and training.
And
Second.
any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Donna,
Aye.
Lena,
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
I as well. And then we move on to the next year-end transfers relating to the library.
It's like.
Oh,
Dawn's-
let me just, I'm just gonna, are you promoting Dawn or you want me to do it? I'll have-
Yeah,
I have
I
to
just-
stop sharing to do that, so.
looks like Dawn is here and her mic is opened up.
Oh, so go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What this is related to is there's a large payroll budget surplus at the library, which was fortunate because we have to do some last minute spending to meet our materials expenditures requirement for the state, MDLC. What happened was because staffing was so short for most of the year that not a lot of materials were being purchased. So I came in January, and when I learned about this particular law, I had to scramble to make sure that we are in complete compliance with our materials expenditure requirement, or they call it the MER, so that we retain our certification as a town and a library. So by my admittedly crude calculations, there should be about $140,000 excess in our combined payroll lines. Now, I'm not Allie and I'm not Alicia, but by my calculations, that should be about what we end up with. And I would like to take this 30,000 just so that we can make sure that we meet our 19% MER.
So at 19% of the total budget, it needs to be applied to the new materials. Is that the way I should read it?
That's exactly it. It's so to be in full compliance, it's 19%. There are some other options. We could be in 90% compliance. We would lose some of our state aid. We could apply for flexibility using some of Ramsdale's hours and be in 16% compliance. we would already meet that standard. The problem is that they don't tell you whether they approve that or not until October. And at that point, it's too late. And it's just too important. The money is there. And so having discussed it with our board president, we would like to make sure that we meet the full 19%.
Does that
Um,
mean that the original budgeted amount for these materials was a number that was not in compliance with that ratio requirement?
The original budgeted amount was in compliance with another state requirement called the minimum, I think it's called the minimum assessed, I can't remember now, it's the MAR. But it was not quite enough to meet the MER. It was about, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 short. I'm not sure how that happened, but FY25's budget has enough money in the materials lines. You have to realize too that some of the budget lines that look like they're collection spending are not all collection spending. So, for example, there's a line for subscriptions, and I think about $1,000 of that subscriptions goes towards the system that we use to lend museum passes. So that $1,000 cannot be counted in the materials expenditures because it's not actually circulated to patrons. So it's a little bit more complicated than you think, but next year, FY25, we should be good because we're fully staffed. We can be spending money all year long. And the budget has plenty in it to carry us through.
Okay.
I'm not
I
expecting-
appreciate your explanation. I can't say it makes sense to me, but I appreciate your explanation.
I'm not expecting actually to spend the entire 30,000. When I submitted this, it was about a month ago, and we made a lot of progress. I would expect to spend maybe half of that. A couple budget lines are already overspent. I was allowed to overspend a little bit in anticipation of this transfer. But there remains about $8,000 that we would like to spend. And the lines that are over, I believe, are about $3,000 each.
And what do the terms MAR and MER mean?
MER is called the Materials Expenditure Requirement. And that means that depending on the size of your library, you are required to spend a certain percentage of your budget on actual things that circulate to patrons. In other words, we couldn't have a $700,000 budget and just pay people. We actually have to buy things that circulate for patrons.
And what
The
is
MAR, I believe, is the minimum appropriation requirement. Now, I'm not quite sure I'm remembering that correctly, but that has to do with the entire budget, the whole $650,000, I think it is, for next year. And it has to go up by 2.5% over the average of the past 3 years each year. So, for example, if one year your budget increases by 5%, then the next year it might not necessarily have to increase by 2.5%. But this is how the state makes sure that that towns are adequately funding their libraries, and that libraries are using those funds for what they were intended.
Dawn, Sharon had their hand up and then took it down. Sharon, do you still want to explain something or clarify anything? Okay, she's not raising her hand again, so I'm going to let it go. Okay.
Sharon is our board president. Yes.
So I have a question for Dawn, just so that I understand. So this requirement has been in place for some time? Or
Yes.
is it, okay. So Mark, is that something that was always part of the budgeting process for the library? I mean, I'm a little bit confused that we are saying now that we are not in compliance with pretty fundamental requirement from the state. So yeah.
I don't believe we've been out of compliance at any point during.
No, we haven't. And the fact is that the MER can actually come from other funds. It can come from grant funding. It can come from state aid funds. So the fact that the budget for FY24 was a little bit under does not necessarily mean that we would not have been in compliance.
So why do we need to then transfer the money if we are in compliance? Am I missing something here?
Sharon?
We're not in compliance unless we spend it. So it's two different things. We could go to the trustees and ask them for the money instead. But the money is there in payroll. By my calculations, $140,000, and that is why I asked for the transfer.
Well, I understand that, but the payroll was budgeted for payroll. So there was a budget line for payroll. So I'm asking the budget line, which was for the subscription, as you say, there should have been a certain percentage allocated to that line in order for the library to be compliant, right? So so my question is really, it was not part of the budgeting process to make sure that that line meets the state requirements, whatever the percentage is, given
I
the
wasn't here, so I'm not quite sure how that
yeah,
happened.
this was a question for Mark. I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
Okay.
Sharon has her hand up. Sharon, are you wanting to address some of Elena's question or something else?
I was back with what the difference between MAR and MER, and maybe we've moved past that. The MAR is the municipal appropriation requirement. And as Dawn said, we were in compliance there. Dawn came in mid-year and has been doing yeoman's duty, getting the library fully in compliance. She and I spoke about this on Monday, and we decided that because the funds were there, we much preferred to be in full compliance rather than going to the Board of Library Commissioners for an exception. Quite frankly, I think we need to hold into reserve the times we go and ask for an exception for really down times and severe budget shortages. And so I'm here to fully endorse the request. Thanks.
Mark, so I think, yeah, I'm hearing
I
Milena.
still don't have the answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think she's I think Milena's question is, have we not been budgeting enough in previous years, including this year?
Right.
Have we needed to go to the commission or the board and ask for an exception in past years? Has this been a problem that we've seen?
Not to my knowledge, no. I am aware of the requirement, and it's something I discuss with the library director every year when we're developing the budget, but I've always been under the impression that number was sufficient. I've never received any notice that we're not in
That
compliance.
it was not. Okay.
So I think we've.
Oh, can I ask a question? I wonder, Dawn, is part of this, I know that the budget meeting, we had a lot of discussion about that. There's a lot more requests for electronics materials. Does this come under the purview of electronics, or because this sounded to be more like actual objects or things in this budget line? Is that part of this, where this sort of issue in budgeting is coming from, or not? They're totally unrelated?
No, very fortunately, the Overdrive ebooks and downloadable audiobooks that we purchase do count towards the MER.
Okay.
I think that I'm not sure what the previous director had in mind with the last budget, but the fact that it was a few $1,000s short could have been taken care of with, for example, the Friends normally buy our museum passes. That's $1,000. So I'm not sure And that would be not within the budget. That would be something outside the budget. So it could be that she was thinking that. I don't know, what the plan was. There was 6 months between us. And also the fact that, like I said, some of the subscriptions count, some don't. So it's been a big learning curve for me, I have to tell you.
Oh, I can sympathize with that.
Yeah, but
I
next
get-
year, we'll be much more comfortable, I think, and I can assure you that the budget for FY25 is on the mark.
So last question, if we hypothetically, if the town is in a very bad place and we had to cut the budget extensively across many departments, including the library, what you're suggesting is that part of that process, that painful process, is we'd have to go to the Board of Library Commissioners and get an exemption from these requirements. Is that about right?
I don't know if they would give us an exemption. We would ask for flexibility, is what they call it. And because we have Ramsdale, and Ramsdale is open on Sundays and Mason is not, we would be able to count Mason's hours along, Ramsdale's hours along with Mason. So if Mason is open, for example, 37 hours, and Ramsdale is open on Sundays 3 hours a week, that would give us 40 hours a week. And that way we could go to them and say, we are open the hours that would allow us to be in a higher, a more populous category of library, and which should only obligate us to pay 16% MER rather than 19%. But like I said, they would approve that then in September or October.
Okay, well, I don't want to dwell on my hypotheticals, but they get very bizarre pretty quickly if we had to do a lot of drastic budget cutting, but hopefully we don't have to deal with that.
Basically, when we go through this is the process that the state uses to certify us as a library. Or actually, it's the town that gets certified. So our library is part of a town that is certified by NBLC. And in order to maintain that certification, these are the laws that they have in place.
Yeah, okay. I said I don't want to dwell on it, but I just to clarify what my comment is. I mean, if we have to do a drastic budget cuts across the town budget, I mean, it sounds, it's bizarre that we'd be in a place where we say, well, we have to cut more from police and fire because we have these rules about minimum spends on the libraries. But again, I'm often a real sort of hypothetical world here, so I let's not dwell on that, but I made my point. Hopefully we don't have to deal with it ever. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we transfer $30,000 from the some salary lines in the library budget to various supplies budgets.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Anne?
Aye.
Elena?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And it's unanimous. That's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we move on to, I think, our last one, and that is for the website upgrade.
I don't see Alicia on for this one either, but this is a pretty easy, straightforward one. It's a transfer from the town clerk's line to the website upgrade line, and it's simply for the data transfer during the process of building out our new website, which, by the way, the select board will see a first look at on Monday night if you want to join and take a look at it. But during the process of building out the website, we recognized that quite a bit of data was not going to be transferred over. We hit our limit. We have a lot of information stored on our website, and so this fee is going to pay the company to move more data over to our new website so that it's more readily available to residents when they need it. It's not going to move it all, but it will more of it
And Mark, can I clarify? So that's this amount here, this projected 1 year or prorated 1 year? I'm trying to understand this invoice. And it's, since the amount being requested is 1243.55, oops, sorry.
This
Yeah, so
isn't very,
this must be the amount here.
yeah,
Okay.
it's not very clear on here. I'm sorry. The way it was explained to me by Alicia and Jen at the time was that it would cover the cost of moving X amount of data. I don't know what that number was, but it's not clear on here what exactly.
So Mark, you're just moving data from old website to new website, correct?
Yeah.
Correct, right.
Okay.
The migration has already happened. They've already moved a massive amount of information over. But we're trying to move
This is
as much.
the rest of it, okay.
Yeah, exactly. What happened is when we, and I won't get down into the weeds on this, but when we created our new website 8 years ago, I think it was now. We did the same thing. We migrated a certain amount of data over, and then it just built over time. So all the minutes, all the agendas, all the information, all the news that we posted over that 8-year period just built up over time. And it's all still available to us, but it won't be, not all of it will migrate to the new website. It's just too much information. So it will have
Right,
to
I mean,
build,
at some point you have a cutoff, yeah. of
it will
course.
build over time
Yeah,
again.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move $1,243.55 from the town accountant's budget salary or travel and training line to the to budget line.
Website upgrade.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I don't really understand this one. For the website upgrade budget line. So.
It's actually coming out of a town clerk line going
Yeah.
into a different department line, which is, it was actually a special article, if you remember last year, 2
Okay.
years ago now. So
Okay, so this is coming out of the town clerk and going into a website upgrade budget line.
that's right.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Anne,
Aye.
Elena,
aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Donna,
Aye.
and it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it.
Bill, you had put something in, following up on the,
Yes.
do you want to
Yes.
talk about that or?
Yeah, just very briefly it's on the agenda. I just to help us kind of, okay, there it is, just to help us recall all this. These were from my notes of when we had a discussion back in April about a follow-up, potential follow-ups on the budgetary process. And, you know, what are the possible ways we believe it could potentially work a little better next year? And so this is really just summarizing those notes and just sort of putting it in our historical records here. And on this first point, you know, I just based on the last couple of years, most particularly, there's a select board planning session that happens, priority planning session that happens roughly around January. And I think there's a lot of information that's conveyed to the select board about various capital projects. And in retrospect, some of that information I think would have been extremely helpful for us when we had the budget discussions. So, you know, there's a couple of ways this could work. It could be as simple as us just tuning into that meeting. Or, you know, what I would prefer would be some manner that we would be sort of more official participants in some manner on that meeting, but you know, that's the select board's meeting, so we need to be invited. So so I'm just throwing that out as something to think about for the coming year. I think
So, sorry, Phil, so are you planning to discuss it with Steve? How to make it more, you know?
yeah, I did mention it to Steve as an idea for
Uh-huh.
his consideration, and that's where we left it.
So he's gonna be coming back to you? saying whether it's okay or not okay, or?
I think so. Again, we spoke about it briefly and he said it seemed like a good idea and, but, again, it's up to him.
If I can just
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, Mark, yeah.
add a few points. The priority planning sessions actually happen twice a year, January and then again around June. This year, we weren't able to find a June date. I was away for a few weeks. Steve was away, and due to the meeting calendar, we had to move the priority planning, the mid-year priority planning session to July. So I can actually give you that date right now.
Okay,
The board has agreed to meet on Tuesday, July 30th at 6 o'clock. Staff has been informed that I do have certain department heads, any department head with a priority listed, high priority, I should say, listed on our worksheet, attends and provides updates. I do update that priority planning sheet after every before every session and then after every session again, and it's posted on our website on the select board page. So it's out there, it's available at all times, and I'm also happy to send it to you if you have any problems finding it. It's
Okay,
been a-
well,
Can I ask you then, so what is the difference between the June or July session and the January session?
Nothing. We just provide updates from the last 6 months.
So this is just an update kind of,
Yeah, so twice a year, the board has an opportunity to shuffle their priorities around.
to
They may-
refine if there are
Yeah,
changes or
They
whatever,
may
okay.
want to add a priority, for example, a lawsuit that hit us in that 6 month stretch might
Mhm.
become our highest priority. So it gives
Okay.
them two opportunities a year to shuffle their priorities around. And it gives us as staff a bit of a roadmap to know what we should be focusing our time and efforts on in that 6 month period. And we also provide not only a written update on every high priority item every 6 months, but we provide a verbal update, a more extensive verbal update at those sessions as well.
Mark, I wonder about if, particularly at the January session, I think one of the things we sort of were dealing with in the budget meetings this past year, and again, maybe it was a particular year, but there were some high priority things that were on the budget that were really so costly that we weren't able to put them in the budget. So I'm just wondering if particularly in January, when I'm sure you're already starting to have budget conversations, if that might not be a time to say, okay, how is this priority going to impact the budget? Is it realistic to keep it in as a high priority for this year? I mean, I think that might be a time where we can start to sort of bring together the priorities and what we're looking ahead to the budget for the next year. And maybe that's a time where, the finance committee can really try to be present at those meetings to hear the conversation and be prepared for. And again, I'm thinking about Phil's point and his list of our last conversation, that we're more aware of what's coming down the pike in the budget.
Yeah, you're right. Some of the priorities do have financial impacts to the town, some don't,
Right,
but
right.
many do. So it would be really helpful to have you there present and providing input.
yeah, because they do relate to item 3, where basically it relates to the slowing down or speeding up of a previously authorized borrowing.
Mhm.
All right, so that's number 3, and the other items really just pretty much relate to essentially asking our busy financial staff to get us more information sooner. So they're not here, so we don't want to, can't really address that with them, but I don't want to, just sort of putting that out there as for discussion at some future point. An earlier look at projected debt service, which is number 2. 4 is just getting the binder earlier relative to the first meeting.
We did hear you loud and clear, and we've talked about that internally, and we will do our.
Yeah, it's
our best to
easier
give you
easier
more
said than done. It's a big
Yeah,
bite.
yeah.
It's a
Richard
big-
has his hand up.
just on bullet number 2, this earlier look at projected debt service, as you were just saying, when they're doing this priority planning session and and they know where the money for these various projects is coming from, if it is coming from debt service, is there a way that is known when they're reviewing all of those things that they're planning to do? I mean, all of them are important to do, and we understand, I'm not saying that should affect whether they're done or not, but to know that they are being funded through debt service would be something good to know. Because I've seen the sheet breakdown of the budget, but I haven't seen that it says where the funding for the various items is coming from. Does that question make sense to you?
I think you meant the priority sheet, not the budget sheet, right?
That priority sheet. I mean, it's quite a lengthy list, but it is prioritized in January and in June.
Yeah, no, I think your point is well taken, Richard. I think this is all kind of related. It's sort of a big, and I'll use the bad analogy of a waterbed. You know, if the select board is prioritizing certain projects that require fundings on previously authorized borrowings, it's going to push ahead. You know, it's going to push up debt service, and that's already 20% of our budget, and that's going to be increasing at a more rapid clip. And that has sort of implications for how we decide to spend other monies in the budget. So, you know, I think we all, well, again, we're just, you know, more of a heads up sooner on some of these line items will I think help make our process go a little more efficiently. And that's really the objective here. I certainly understand that you know, there's a lot of accounting and reporting that needs to be done, and we're sort of asking for more. But if some accommodation can be made, that would be great. All right. I think that's just that list, just to kind of go over that one more time. And then Anne, did you want to bring something up?
Yeah, so actually this is, I think, on the on the topic of town thinking about finances and things. And I think most of you probably know, well, I don't know how many of you know, but on Thursday, there's a hearing, a Zoom hearing with the DPU on the proposed Housatonic water rate settlement agreement. And my comments here as a member of the Finance Committee have nothing to do with the rates per se. I'll be attending Thursday's meeting for that. But I guess I wanted just to bring to the Finance Committee's attention, and I did talk with Mark about this, but the DPU is in the settlement is suggesting, and I'm going to quote from their settlement, that the towns will review the updated cost estimate for these projects and have the option to decide at a certain date whether companies should proceed with each of the projects. And there are 5 phases to the projects. And I guess I just want to point out, I have some concerns, and I did express this to Mark to relay, and he said he'll relay this as well. And I'll bring it up at the meeting with the DPU, but it sounds to me like the Department of Public Utilities is putting on the town the responsibility for evaluating how well a water company is meeting certain stipulations, such as manganese treatments and hallucinogenic acid or whatever that's called treatments. And, you know, to me, this is putting a burden on the town, and a financial burden potentially. I mean, I don't think the town has, I could be wrong, but we would have to have the expertise to assess how well this is being done. And never mind perhaps to have the legal backing to do this. And I'm going to push back with the DPU and tell them that I just think, I don't understand why they are not overseeing this and they're asking the town to do this. To me, they're putting an added burden on the town, and if they want us to do this, they should give us the money to do this. So, and the resources and the staff to do it. So the other is that they want the Housatonic Water to work with the town to investigate the availability of grants or alternative funding. And again, I'm not against this. I think that's a great thing, but that's town staff time to do this. And again, if that's something we're gonna do, how is the DPU supporting us in doing this? So I'm speaking as a member of the Finance Committee here, that I feel that the Department of Public Utilities is putting a burden, both a staff time, expertise, and financial burden on the town that they need to somehow help us manage. So that's just my statement.
Um,
So,
no, I certainly hear you loud and clear, Ann.
yeah, this isn't anything that, you know, I think we need to do, but I think we need to be prepared. If this goes through as is, this will be an additional cost to the town.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, this big picture, I thought the DPU was supposed to do that monitoring
Yeah,
activity.
it's
So
the most bizarre thing. So maybe it's a typo. I was so shocked by it that maybe there's something I don't understand here. So, but I will ask them at the meet. I also, my understanding with these hearings, unfortunately, is that we don't get to ask them questions. So you don't get to ask a question and get an answer. You just get to make a comment. So I don't know if we're gonna, I don't know what's gonna come of it.
Okay, well, I hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can't do anything about it, but I hear you loud and clear.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing we can do at this point. But-
Okay,
Oh, because Richard joined Lakeville, we didn't get to congratulate him on his reelection or election, I guess, right?
Yes, my first 3-year election.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And Phil, your reelection,
oh,
congratulations.
yes, I'm sorry. I think I confused Richard's with yours, but yes, Richard and I were running and we both did great in the election process.
And-
Unopposed is the way to go. Yeah.
And Richard, I hope you're not disappointed, but while you were still trying to log in, Phil got reappointed as chair and I got reappointed as vice chair. I hope that didn't.
No, it's perfectly wonderful. Thank you. Very good. Thanks.
So we'll still get those big stipends that we get for those.
Right. May I just ask, if we find that the town is placed in a position where we have more costs of like Anne was talking about, more costs to the town because of decisions that DPU makes, is there a process or a possibility that the town can request funds from DPU to cover the extra burden?
That's what I think we should do. But Mark, what do you think?
To be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question, but I am meeting with our attorney and will certainly pass along your feedback, Anne, and I can ask that question as well.
Thank you very much.
We plan to meet before the town's position statement is finalized on Thursdays.
Okay, so again, I just think big picture, where the finance committee is not a party to a significant chunk of this dialogue and these exchanges, and a certain portion of the select board debate. So we regrettably need to be in a reactive mode when things are decided. We can advise on financial aspects. So I think that's my position on where we're at.
Indeed.
Okay. Any citizen speak? Any media time? Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I think it's by unanimous agreement. We will adjourn. Good evening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay cool.